outside the Space Center Houston, which is a visiting center for NASA, and it opened in 1992. And they're in partnership with the Johnson Space Center, which opened in 1961 during the NASA expansion, and also helped serve the Langley Research Center based in Virginia, which is where my book is set this month. Hidden Figures. So basically, it follows several young women in the 1950s as they use their mathematical talents to contribute to the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, or NACA, which is what NASA was called before it was NASA. They serve as human computers, mathematicians, and engineers, and they eventually help get a man on the moon. So I didn't know this was going to be a history book. I actually thought it was going to be a narrative, like historical fiction. So as for the themes, my book tackles racism and sexism in the workplace, which I'm sure you know is still an issue today, but not like it was in the 1950s. It reports on the dynamics of being a black woman, professional in the black community, and the community at large in the 1960s. And it's about smart women, most of all, breaking down barriers in regard to education, race, and in the workplace in general. It jumps point of view in time periods a lot, which I thought was kind of confusing, honestly. There were so many names, it was kind of hard for me to follow.
Were there names you recognized from school or like from coming to Space Center or anything within the book?
So actually that's kind of what this book is about, is because these women, they're hidden, they're not recognized, and they don't appear in history books. So this book really highlights them in a way that they haven't been given credit for before. Women just weren't mathematicians and engineers back in the 1950s and 60s. And for them to, you know, be working for a federal entity back then, doing that job, and they like fought to get there, from basically being human calculators to being like engineers behind the science. That was a big deal, and this book really goes into that and gives them credit in a way they haven't gotten before.
Some girl power books.
It is a definite girl power book.
I love a girl power book.
So as for my opinion on the book, like I said, it was kind of jumping around. I thought it was a bit confusing, and it was a little bit dry, but that's because it's a history book and I just wasn't expecting that. The story itself is good and inspiring, so I would definitely recommend it on that point. And most of all, it's an important read because these women just aren't talked about, and I think it's important to know the history of NASA and that women basically were the backbone of that.
Yeah, you always hear about the man on the moon, not the women that put him there.
Ooh, yes. Ooh, what a good quote from Taylor. As for the movie, there were some differences. Definitely the movie was more dramatized. More emphasis was placed on blatant segregation when NACA dissolved in 1958 in the book. So NASA itself was actually founded as they abolished segregation. So that wasn't in the movie. They were trying to basically say that it was still segregated when it actually wasn't. So NASA was a bit ahead of the curve on that, but I think they were going for showing the issues in the community around NASA. Also, advancements in the women's ranks happened well before they did in the movie, in the book. These women were getting promoted to be mathematicians well before they got the promotions in the movie. In the movie, it wasn't until the very end. In the book, it was pretty early on. And respect was also given to them earlier in the book for their achievements, which is how they got those promotions in the first place. Gender integration also happened before it did in the movie. The guys in the book actually seemed pretty chill in regard to working with women. Once they saw they could do the work, they really welcomed them into the fold, I felt.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
Do you feel that they dramatized some of this stuff for the movie?
Yes.
Like it was over the top for the movie?
In some places there was sort of like a white savior vibe. Like in the book, these women worked themselves into these positions. But in the movie, they kind of show Catherine's boss, and Catherine, they make her the main focus in the movie. They showed her boss like destroying the sign for the black women's restroom, when in reality, Catherine was using the white women's restroom this whole time. She just decided she wasn't gonna care about that sign, and she just went for it. And I thought it was kind of taking credit away from her in the movie by showing this guy just come up and like do it for her. I know they did it for drama, But yeah, I thought it was a little over the top and unneeded, as that women, as evidenced in real life, were perfectly capable of standing up for themselves. As for other differences, I was sad the moon landing wasn't included, because that was like the last 75 pages or so of the book. It meant not getting to see the women climb the ranks even further in NASA. So in the movie, they barely are starting to achieve, and in the book, like they're well into their careers by then. But all in all, it was a good movie, and it gave the stories presented in the book a lot more structure, which I really appreciated, since it did follow a narrative style and was like
a more linear
linear, definitely.
Yeah, that jumping back and forth really can make or break a book.
Yeah, really. I would probably say that neither is actually better. I think they work very well hand in hand. I might even recommend watching the movie before reading the book, because I think it would help give structure to the book.
Most people say the opposite.
Yeah.
I can't really say much. My book, I didn't really care for my movie as well, so. Like, my movie wasn't the greatest. But with all of that said, are you ready to head to the library, Sarah?
Yes, I am.
All right, let's go.
Gotta return my book. So what about your book, Taylor?
So my book that I read this month was Those Who Wish Me Dead by Michael, I'm gonna butcher your last name, sorry bro, Kurita. Mike, I'm sorry again, but I'm gonna have to say I absolutely loved this book before I start. So this book is about when a 14-year-old boy, Jace Wilson, witnesses a brutal murder. He plunges into a new life and is issued a false identity and put into a witness protection program. They send him to a wilderness program for troubled teens, even though he's not troubled in the sense of the other boys, he's still troubled. And the plan is to get Jace off the grid while the police and his killers are searching for him. The result is a absolute nightmare. The killers are known as the Blackwell brothers, and they're slaughtering pretty much anyone and anything that gets in their way on their way to get to Jace. Now all that remains between them and the boy are Ethan and Allison Serber, who are the people that are running the wilderness survival camp for the boys. Hannah Faber, who is actually a lonely lookout tower ex-firefighter. And then there's a lot of mountains as well, because the elements are a lot of this story. The clock is ticking and the mountains are burning, and those who wish Jace dead are no longer far behind. This book was one that I really enjoyed because it starts right off the bat. Jace is immediately seeing a murder happen, and it just spirals from there. But each part had a different twist and turn. The characters were all really developed pretty well. Jace, it showed you two sides of Jace, especially when they give him his false identity. I did enjoy this book because I do enjoy the outdoors. It gave me a lot of insight on wildfires. So the entire time that Jace is running, there are wildfires happening, and they're giving him like, during those wilderness survivalists, he's learning tools. And then once he finds the killers are on his trail, he separates from everybody, and that's where the story really changes. I really did like this book. I liked the setting. I mean, it's Montana. It sounds beautiful. I kept imagining what it would look like.
I used to want to live there.
Yeah, I want to visit Montana so bad. And it being somewhere that I wanted to visit, I think I found it extra cool. I did pick this book based on the fact that there was a 2021 movie that came out last year with the same name, Those Who Wish Me Dead, but it was actually directed by Taylor Sheridan. And I know Yellowstone is really popular right now, but that is the same director that directed Yellowstone. However, I didn't like the movie as much. This is the summary. Two hitmen in Florida burned down a home of a district attorney, Owen, a forensic accountant that creates double evidence against these hitmen. Hears the news and immediately takes his son Connor and runs to Montana, putting him in his brother-in-law Ethan's care. As soon as they reach Montana, Owen ultimately dies after the hitmen gun him down and fall off a cliff. Sorry for these spoilers, guys. Connor is found by Hannah, Angelina Jolie, and the two battle not only the hitmen, but also a wall of fire. After reading the book and watching the movie, I definitely liked the book better. I am glad that I read the book before I watched the movie. The movie had a lot of differences from the book. There was the fact that Connor was his name in the movie, that was his witness protection name in the book, So there was not that like Jace Connor battle going on in the movie like we saw.
Seems like a big change.
It was a big change. There's a lot of big changes. So that was one big change because there was not that inner
dynamic.
Yeah, well, and that inner battle going on the whole time. Like in the book, there's parts where he's saying like, you know, Connor's brave, I can be brave, I'm a bad kid, you know, I'm gonna act bad. Whereas Jace was very timid and reserved and very shy. So they took that whole element out for the movie. There's a part in the book where Allison and Ethan, who are a married couple, they talk briefly about why they don't have kids. And they don't have kids in the book. In the movie, they made Allison pregnant, which didn't make sense. Also, they changed Ethan's profession, which I thought really ruined the whole aspect of the book as well. Ethan is a sheriff in the movie. Not that a sheriff isn't a great career, but in the book, he was a wildlife survival SWAT team, Navy SEAL.
That seems like it makes
teacher.
more sense.
He taught everybody. Another thing with Ethan and Connor, Jace, you know, whatever his name was, Ethan was not related to Connor in the book. He didn't actually know who he was until he ran away, until the killers were almost on him. So Ethan had no relation whatsoever, whereas in the movie, that's how the killers find him, because Ethan is Owen, the dad's brother-in-law, and he sees a picture, the killers see a picture, and they know exactly where he's gone because of the picture. So they kind of took that two different routes as well. And then this one was I think this is why I didn't like the movie the most, was my next 2 points. So there's a character in the movie and there's a character in the book. And they left the book character out of the movie and they left the movie out of the book. So there's this character in the book, Jamie Bennett. Jamie Bennett is the officer that comes to Ethan and Allison and says, hey, I got this kid. He's gonna come to you guys in this wilderness survival program. We're not gonna tell you who he is. He's witness protection. I need you to protect him. And from that, you think that she's helping Jace, she's helping Ethan, she's helping Allison. Whereas, I don't want to spoil this book because I'm telling y'all it's really, really good and the plot twist is great, but she's a key component in the plot. Then there was this character, Arthur, who's played by Tyler Perry. But I don't know if they just wanted a good another name because they had Angelina Jolie. Yeah. That guy that's the sheriff in the first season of Walking Dead's in it. Oh. So I don't know if they just wanted another big name. But Tyler Perry is Arthur. And Arthur comes in at kind of the end of the movie. And he's the boss man for these two serial killers. And he kind of is like, basically came in to tell them like, you guys aren't doing this right. You need to do a better job. But he has no real relevance other than that. Like, I didn't understand his point of the movie, or like why he was there, and it bothered me the whole time because I'm like, this should be Jamie Bennett. Where's Jamie Bennett? Where is she at? Basically, at the end of the day, after I've read the book and I watched the movie, I think that they did a phenomenal job. Michael Cordia, whatever you say his last name, he did a phenomenal job on this book. I would reread it. Honestly, it was that great. The movie probably won't be rewatching anytime soon. I actually had to watch it twice to get through it. Not gonna lie. It was just one of those ones that they took the basic plot, the very, very basic plot from this book, which was a boy running from serial killers, and turned it into what Taylor Sheridan or whatever other producers would have liked it to be, where they had a really good movie right here, and they, in my opinion, a little bit ruined it.
Which is what often happens.
Yeah, and I think it's funny because, you know, coming from your book, you said that you think they kind of go hand in hand.
Oh, yeah.
Watch the movie and read the book, and you even said watch the movie first. This is one where I would read this book first, and I mean, it was kind of fun to watch the movie, and I could really pull comparisons, which was really fun. I enjoy doing that in general, but I wouldn't have picked it. Like, I wouldn't have watched it. I would have turned it off about halfway in, and yeah. I think my boyfriend was the same. Like, he actually watched it the whole way through the first time, and then I had to rewatch the other half, so he had to rewatch it again with me. So I think he's about done with it as well.
Makes me think of Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban.
Yes,
The
that's
movie.
like my favorite example of like they lost so much detail, and I think that's what really happened in this book.
Yeah,
is
like
they
the
lost a lot of
director
detail.
just wants to make it theirs. And
Well,
they're
what
not.
they see, and that's the cool
Yeah.
thing about I think doing a library to the theater kind of theme for this month, is that there's a lot of movies and that are coming from books now. I mean, there's
Everything.
everything. And you can go and pick up these books at your local library and then have a movie night, have a book club about it, talk about it. There's a couple
They're
of
fun
other
to laugh
ones
at.
on Netflix right now. I mean, you actually did The Haunting of Hill House, you know,
And it's
last
very
month.
different.
And that one was really different. And then another one that I recently read is The One. It's very popular on Netflix also. And I read that book and watched the show. They're very different. They're, you know, it's what you see in your mind while you're reading. That director's gonna make it what they want. But this was a really fun theme.
Yes, I enjoyed it.
So when you guys are looking for your books this month and you see that movie, you know, based on a true story or based on a novel, remember, no shelf required.
Bye, y'all.
Bye, guys.